the web developer and programming program at Lakeshore Technical College. So we're going to start here on the CSS Garden project. And as you can see, I have a lot of tabs open here. Generally, we're going to be going from old to new. So this is one of the older projects that I've done. And at the end, we'll spend some time going over the latest stuff. So as we progress, you'll see these are basically not all of the projects that I've done in the program, but these are like monuments, basically, you know, along the way. Landmark projects, I guess, in my development. So let's begin. This first project is CSS Garden, which is a rite of passage for any student web developer. The concept, if you're not familiar with it, is basically they give you an HTML file and you're tasked with styling it entirely without editing the HTML and without using any JavaScript, and just doing something awesome with the CSS file. It's a testament to the kind of purism, I guess you could say, that we're all acquainted with at some point in the beginning when we're learning HTML and CSS, to try and do as much as you can with the simple tool that CSS is, and not lose sight of the how powerful it is, basically. And yeah, so even though, you know, I love JavaScript and everything, this was an important project for me early on. So really proud of that. Next, we have here, this is a WordPress site that we made. So basically we took a blank WordPress theme and we customized it for a fictional business called Earl's Autos. So there's a bunch of different pages here. As you can see, and people actually comment on this, but I mean, it's just set to moderate all comments and I never approve them, so it's not a real business, so you can just leave it alone. But this was when we were studying PHP, vanilla PHP first. So that is Earl's Autos. This is the Millionaires Mecca, which is not an interactive website. It's just meant to be an exhibition of various web design trends. So you have the hero image and some other things. Probably the thing that I'm most proud of on here is these custom cards that I designed. So that is Millionaires Mecca. This was an interesting project that we did early on. We were tasked with recreating the LTC front web page. It took me about an afternoon to do it, and I even made it similarly, as you can see, you know, the website could have changed by now, and many of these links are, you know, maybe some of them still work and maybe some of them are still live, but overall this is exactly how it looked and functioned basically at the time that I did this. So very proud of that. This is a website where we were supposed to make a travel log. Nothing particularly amazing about it, but I did enjoy designing the menu with these, you know, animations and things. This is a movie and TV show review site. This was made with jQuery UI shortly after we started working with jQuery. And as you can see, we have some animations here. All right. I'm really proud of this project. Barry's Campground is a fictional business. We were tasked with creating an animation in the browser to advertise for this business, and I had this painting that I had done a short time before I entered the program at LTC. I was a hobbyist digital painter. I used Procreate on the iPad to do this painting, and I jumped for this painting, and I still had the original files with the layers and everything, so I was able to do some pretty interesting things with the layers and the animations. So yeah, I'm really very proud of this, and Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. It's kind of a silly little thing. Okay, so now we're getting into some of the more interactive stuff that we've worked with. This website was made with vanilla PHP. The concept was to develop actually, just to go over this one first, because this one is a little bit less complicated. So we did this before Hot Ash Cigars. Ticket Dominator is also a vanilla PHP website. The point of it was to create a website that was kind of like a fictional ticket selling website, e-commerce website. So just to give you a little demo, you can also search. And then there's no authentication on this website, but this was just when we were starting out with vanilla PHP. And of course, the database backend was MySQL. All right. So then the next project after that was Hot Ash Cigars. So it was a significant step up in complexity. Still made with vanilla PHP though. So the concept for this was a website where a fictional business is selling cigars, and customers are supposed to be able to come create an account, log in, and make fictional purchases, basically, that appropriately decrement the quantity of various cigars. So I'll show you what I mean. So I have this little tab layout that I made with jQuery UI, and we have different cigars. So here it says this one's out of stock, and how it works is if you, let's say in this case, you were to buy 35, then it will actually bring this quantity, to 0, and it'll say out of stock. So, but before we do that, I'll show you the login feature that we have here. Oh, and we do have a search, just like on Ticket Dominator. So, anyway, let's create a customer account. Now we're going to log in. Okay, so now we're logged in, and you can see it says Hello Mac up here. So we're going to go ahead and let's try and buy this business out of the, that could get a little bit expensive. Actually, as you can see, this is a pretty good business because these are all pretty expensive. Let's live large and go for these. So we'll get 42 of those. All right, so we do want to add these to our cart. So this is our cart, and we're gonna add some other stuff to our cart. Let's say we'll get 8 of these as well. We're living large. All right. So now this is this is our cart. Might have to call my bank before I can make this purchase just to confirm that I can spend this money. All right, so we're going to confirm the order, and then this is our orders page, our order history page. Okay, and now if we go back to the humidor, we should see that the let's see, which ones did we buy? Was it the Panama Perfecto? Yeah, see, out of stock. So that is Hot Ash Cigars. It was the first experiment with vanilla PHP. These projects were, and as you'll see later, PHP became very important to me. So all right, so this was a project building a mobile application. I actually have this app installed on my phone, on my Android device, but for now I'm just showing it to you in the browser because it's a bit easier. So the concept of this was a beer app where you can put tasting notes and it will save them. It has descriptions of various beers, and then you can get rid of them. So this one is one of the first hybrid mobile apps that we made. It was made with jQuery Mobile and also vanilla JavaScript, of course. And then as a single page application that we then used Cordova to deploy, or PhoneGap to deploy to Android devices. So then the next project after that was a project that I called Track That Baby. The concept of this application was inspired by my short time as a stay-at-home father. I thought it would be useful to have an application to track the feeding and sleep schedules of young infants, and then to be able to share a code that would allow you to give that code to a spouse or someone else who's important in the child's life. And then they can take that code and go in a web browser to a website and put in that code, and then see statistics that day regarding the child and how they're sleeping and eating. So this is also made with the similar design pattern of the beer app. This was made with jQuery Mobile as a single page application. So alright, so now we can add a feeding. You can choose a child. And we'll say 1 o'clock p.m. For feeding type, you can choose breast or bottle. If you choose breast, it's going to ask you the duration for each breast. Okay. And then for a bottle, it'll ask you to choose the milk composition. Apologies. And you can choose breast milk, formula, or mix of breast milk and formula. Okay. So I'm not actually going to add this feeding, but the next thing I'll show you is the sleeping. So, and actually, from a previous recording that I've done, I have an ongoing sleep. But you can end a nap. All right. And then one issue that I ran into with this application early on, and it was something that I ended up researching and solving later in a different project, but this is my first encounter with cross-origin resource sharing, and the issues that plague a lot of people the first time they're learning about single-page applications. And even though I now know how to solve those that issue, it did result in some difficulties with this application, because I can send information to this web server, and this is let's see here, I think it would be this one right here. So yeah, you can generate a code, and then I think let's see, yeah, I should be able to pair it with a baby here. All right, I may have turned off that functionality actually, because the point is I wasn't able to solve the issue of getting the web server to allow cross-origin resource sharing. So that feature of this app did not work. But in the future, I was able to not fix it with this application, but I was able to learn about the cross-origin resource sharing. So we'll get back to that. But the next project is my capstone project. It's an interactive storytelling website called Yarn. It's not deployed yet, but I'm going to continue to develop it after I leave school, and I plan on deploying it someday. The concept is similar to interactive novels back in the day. You read a little bit, or you page or a chapter, and then you get to a point and you can make a choice. And then depending on what your choice is, it'll tell you what page to go to. And in that way, there can be multiple endings in the story. So the concept for this is a platform where users can sign up for an account, use an editor to create an interactive story that follows a sensical structure for an interactive story with one beginning and multiple endings and different paths through the story. And then there's a browse section where you can go and pick out stories to read, and it'll even track your progress and give you recommendations so that you can keep on exploring stories after you reach one ending until you get through all of the endings. So I'm going to show you. I'll log in with my account since I have the administrative privileges on this. And then I also will say this here, which we'll get to in a little bit. This is another hybrid mobile application. This is the hybrid mobile application where I was able to solve the cross-origin resource sharing, but this is like a companion app that goes with the web platform. The point of the app, of course, is to read interactive stories through an API that I built on the website. And this app, we'll get back to it later, and I'll talk about how it was built. But for now, let's log into the website side of it. And this project, by the way, was made with, I used Bootstrap 4 pretty heavily on the design side of it, mainly because I wanted to do some custom things, and you can see on the landing page I did, but the focus on this was the server side of the code, because I was learning a new framework on the server side, and that is Laravel. Laravel is an MVC, model view controller framework for PHP. It's really amazing, and I could talk for hours about Laravel, but for now I will just demo this project for you. So there is going to be, first I'll go through the editing workflow. So this file cabinet, I only have the one demo story, and it's a little on the short side because this is just for testing purposes. But we can go to edit the story details. I incorporated a WYSIWYG editor and appropriate security measures involved with that, and then also this little character counter down here for convenience. That's vanilla JavaScript. Also image uploading for a cover image. So, and we're not going to update it now because we don't need to. But then now there's basically three parts, these interactive stories. There's tiers, which tiers, you don't need to know about tiers as a reader, but as a writer on this platform, and I'll create a documentation section for this in the future, but a tier is a way of organizing the chapters of your story. So the first chapter of your story will always be in tier 1, and tier 1 will always only have the one chapter, the beginning chapter of the story. But then after that, all the tiers after that can contain multiple nodes or chapters in each tier. And the rule for the paths, right? So the paths are the choices that users make. And the rule is paths must go from one chapter to another, but always from a node in one tier to the next tier. Okay? And the path can only go from one story to another one, if that makes sense. So tiers make it easier to organize your chapters as you're editing them, basically. So you can see this, we're in tier 2 of 4. There's 2 child nodes in this tier. The nodes are like the chapters of the story. So we'll go ahead and see, this is a node. We can edit it, and there's a WYSIWYG editor, just like we had before. Okay, we'll actually go back here, and I think this one has some paths. So the paths are the choices that the user will have when they go to that story, and you can see you can edit it. And so yeah, now we'll go to the fun side of the site, I guess you could say, to the browse section. So there's a genre system. You go here, you can add books to your bookshelf, and that's how you don't have to add a book to your bookshelf to read it, but that's the only way that you'll get it to give you the recommendations. So what we're going to do is log out and create a fictional user so that you can see the full Okay, so this new user goes to the browse section and he wants to read about the weird wizard. So he's going to add it to his bookshelf. Alright, and this is the story on his bookshelf. So he's going to start reading, and this is the reading workflow. So these are the choices at the end of each chapter. And oh, it looks like we've got to an ending in the story. And it's going to give you this. It's going to say, it looks like you've reached an ending, but there may be unexplored paths awaiting you. So it uses an algorithm to suggest a chapter in the story that has paths leading potentially to endings that you have yet to explore. So basically it calculates the parent chapter of the highest unread chapter in the story for you, if that makes sense. So you can click this and then you can keep reading. And it will keep recommending until you have reached all the endings, and then it will stop giving you recommendations. So that is the web platform side of it. And I could talk to you I worked on this project for a long time now, and I could talk probably for hours if I showed you the code, so I'll spare you the gruesome conversation about that. But this is the companion app, and I built an API that does not involve authentication, but the web platform, Laravel, it has an API that I built, and it serves up only publicly accessible information. So it doesn't serve up any private unpublished stories or any recommendations or anything like that. It's only the publicly accessible stories and information from the site. But I'll show you here. We can go to the browse section, and it shows you the genres that we currently have. It does get those from the database. And then you can see here we have this story. And now we can go ahead and add this to our bookshelf. And here the story is on our bookshelf. And I'm going to use my finger here. So then it gives you, when you swipe it, it gives you a couple options. You can delete the subscription. Alright, you go back to the bookshelf and you can see it's gone. So we'll go back to the browse section and re-add it to our bookshelf so that we can read it. And let's start reading. So as you can see, it's similar to the website. Make choices. Okay, back to bookshelf. And continue story. Right, but as you can see, it doesn't have the recommendation feature, which is something that I will look into in the future. But now if we go back to bookshelf and select continue story, you can see it has basically a bookmark feature built into it. And this app was built with Ionic, which is a hybrid app development platform, and it uses Angular 7, I believe it is. I may be wrong on that. I'm not sure which Angular it is, but I know it's not the original Angular JS. It's one of the later Angulars. And this is Ionic 4, I believe. And yeah, this was probably my first experience with TypeScript, but because of my previous experiences with object-oriented programming in Java as well as PHP, it wasn't that unusual to work with TypeScript. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate you taking the time to review my portfolio with me. Have a nice day.